Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Geezerology 2.0. Bob, Bill, and I are surfing Prime Video these days, finding movies to watch and discuss. Today, we're having a look at The Best Years of Our Lives, a film that won a slew of Oscars at the 19th Academy Awards, including Best Picture. Bill picked this movie for our assignment this week, so I'm going to let him set the stage for this discussion. Bill, why don't you start by telling us your history with The Best Years of Our Lives and let us know why you thought it would be a good one for us to talk about.
Well, thank you, Scott. I think it's a good one to talk about because it's very germane and timeless in a certain sense, even though it is very specifically set in the immediate post-World War II era. The film actually is made in 1946, so 1 year after the war had ended. And, in a concise way, it's about three veterans who have just been discharged from the service, and they are returning home to their hometown, and they meet in a very kind of conventional way because they're all waiting for some sort of flight that they can catch that will deliver them back to Boonville, wherever this town is, kind of a mythical town in the U.S., kind of a mid-sized town, I gather. And anyway, they bond on the flight home, and then the whole movie itself is how they interact with the community, with their families, with each other. And it really is a great way to kind of understand the disruptions that the war had caused, both overseas with the action that these three veterans saw, as well as the home front, where things were, being dealt with as best they could be by the families and others who were stateside. I found that the casting of this, what was the thing that originally drew me to this movie. So when I was a younger kid, I really had this illogical crush on Myrna Loy. I had seen her in the Thin Man movies, which to me, my grandfather had taken me to see these in when they would do kind of revivals, and I just was astonished by how modern seeming she and her husband, quote, in these movies, William Powell, were, in terms of their banter and how they interacted. So I made it kind of a point to try to see as many of her movies as I could. And I think maybe about 20 years ago, it was the first time I saw The Best Years of Our Lives. And being a guy who had been in the Air Force myself, I had a kind of an understanding myself of what it was like when you serve, when you go away, and then when you come home, and how all of those things impact you. And to me, having her cast as the wife of the oldest of the veterans, Fredric March, who is interesting in that his role, he is a sergeant in the infantry, and yet his job is the most high status of the three. Unlike Dana Andrews, who plays Army Air Force's bombardier, who was an officer, and yet before he joined the service, he was a soda jerk at the local pharmacy. And the third veteran is actually not an actor at all. Harold Russell was cast by the director William Wyler because he had been in a service-related accident. He was an instructor in the Navy, working with kind of bomb disposal and detonation mitigation situations, and a fuse accidentally blew up while he was handling it, and he lost both of his hands. And as a result, he is in the movie, he is using the hooks that he has been trained to use by the Navy as part of his rehabilitation. So those are the three veterans. Myrna Loy is Fredric March's wife, and their daughter is Teresa Wright. And Teresa Wright had been in a very explosively important career. I mean, she burst onto the scene in Mrs. Miniver, which led to one of her nominations for an Academy Award. She was in The Pride of the Yankees, which was another nomination, and then she won for this role, where she's the daughter who becomes romantically attached to Dana Andrews. Now, Andrews is married, and his wife, Virginia Mayo, who is cast against type, she's typically a light comedian. She's usually hilarious, but in this role, she's the wife who has been, trying to make it on her own, while her husband, who she had just met before he was deployed overseas, left, and he comes back to find that she's working in a nightclub. She's got a whole different take on what's going on, and she wants to parade him around as a war hero, and he wants to get back to business and find a job and get settled down as quickly as he can. All of these things lead to dramatic conflicts, and you can really appreciate how they try to integrate themselves back in society. And I think the two most important parts, not just the casting, which is really quite on point, is that William Wyler, who is the director, who is really an actor's director. He's quite accomplished. He has probably one of the top 5 most brilliant careers, as far as I would be concerned, in Hollywood history. But he had actually been in the Army Air Forces himself as a volunteer, and he had been overseas and filmed a couple of key documentaries, the most important of which was the one about the Memphis Belle, this B-17 that had completed its 25 missions over Europe. And he had flown on those flights. So he was in combat missions with his sound and camera people, capturing real life and death situations. And he spent 3 years in Europe, and he came back just the same way that these other veterans did. And he suffered through the same sort of reintegration challenges. So he's very sympathetic to the story, and he casts these people in the most accurate light that he can, given how Hollywood works. And his cinematographer is Greg Toland. And Toland, because of his work, especially with Citizen Kane, he's well known for what they would call depth of focus filming. And so he's very much a person who uses the lens to capture big picture scenes. So there's not a lot of cutting back and forth. You see all of the people in the screen doing things simultaneously. And it is quite an evocative thing that actually brings this story much more to life than it would be if it were just kind of a constrained small set sort of situation. It's a movie that I always have to have a little box of Kleenex next to me, because I do tend to tear up a little bit multiple times. It's very emotional. I think it's pretty darn accurate, and it rewards itself over multiple viewings.
Bob?
A little bit of background, if I may, first. I was very much aware of this film. I knew about the Academy Awards it had grossed. I knew about the acclaim that it has received. I know what it's about. And for whatever, and I've seen bits and pieces of it, probably from time that it might have popped up on television or something, but I've never watched it in its entirety. Why, I really don't know, because it's something that touches pretty kind of close to me, because my dad served during World War II, and he volunteered in March of '42 and served for the duration in North Africa, Sicily, and Italy. And I know the impact the war had on my dad and the impact that it had on our family. And 3 out of my 4 uncles served. And I can remember as a young boy during family gatherings, if my uncles got enough beer in them, they'd eventually start talking about the war experiences. And I can remember sitting there, like one of my uncles was a very mild-mannered person, and I'm mesmerized by him telling stories about hand-to-hand combat, fending off bonsai charges and stuff. So anyway, the war affected my family. So when Bill made this suggestion, I really looked forward to watching this movie. And it started out really great. And in the opening scenes, when these three veterans are trying to get themselves home and they're running into logistics problems and transportation problems, I remember my dad telling me about, by the time he made it home, he said there were no ticker tape parades for him. And he was discharged at Fort Dix in New Jersey and had to make his way home to Missouri. And our farm was kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So my dad reached a point when there was no transportation, so he had to hitchhike, to get home. So, and he told me all of these stories. So I was like, yeah, I can really identify with this based on what my dad was telling me. And I know that, the World War II generation suffered trauma from the war, just like all veterans have, but a lot of it was never talked about. So this was kind of a radical thing for its time, I'm going to have to assume. Anyway, I started out really liking the film, but as we got deeper and deeper into it, it got spoiled for me. It was the casting of Dana Andrews and the character that he portrayed. And to me, Dana Andrews was way too old for the character that he played. Dana Andrews was 35, 36 when this movie came out, but he's portraying a character really who should be much younger. And he winds up falling in love with a girl who's, 18, 19 years old at the most in the movie. And that just didn't sit with me. And the three veterans make it home, and none of them want to get out of the cab they're in because they're scared of the reception they're going to get from their families and such. So ultimately, they all wind up in the same bar. They all get pretty plastered that night, and Dana Andrews can't find his wife because she's moved out from his parents' home and has her own place now, and she's not home. So he winds up spending the night with the family of one of the other veterans. The next morning, the veteran's daughter is giving Dana Andrews a ride. So he's the second day that he's home, he's dropping pickup lines on her. And that just bothered me tremendously, that you haven't even found your wife yet, but here you are, hitting on this 18-year-old girl. And Fredric March, who portrays the oldest of the veterans, at one point said, I've been married 20 years. So that means that his oldest child, his daughter, could be no more than 18 or 19. Yet in this movie, she's mixing cocktails, she's going in the nightclubs and drinking and doing all of these things that somebody that age would not be doing. And the character, Dana Andrews, he comes from a very poor family. You see his parents living in essentially what is poverty. He was a soda jerk before he went into the Army Air Force. And it's like, I just couldn't picture somebody that old with that kind of a background. And we're led to believe that him living in poverty, working as a soda jerk, that he marries this hot gold digger type person. And Dana Andrews' character having this, falling for this young girl and all that, that was just too Hollywood for me. And it kind of ruined to me the seriousness of this film. And there were elements, and other than that, this is a fantastic film. And like I say, I could watch it and see things that my dad had told me about. There was a thing with Dana Andrews and his wife that really could have been explored, I think, differently, that would have resonated much more rather than throwing in this May-December romance type thing. So that part of it, when I was watching it, it just, that grated on me, and unfortunately it hampered my feelings of the movie. But other than that, I think it's a fantastic film, beautifully put together, had some very evocative moments. There's a scene toward the end of the film where Dana Andrews has decided he's leaving town, he's getting out, and he goes down to the local air base and he's waiting to catch a ride out. So he wanders into this airplane graveyard where they have all of these warplanes that are being dismantled. And he climbs up into one of the bombers sitting there, and he's up in the nose of the plane. And of course, all of the memories of the war have come back to him. And beautiful scene, very, very moving. Great, great film. I just couldn't get past the incongruity of the Dana Andrews character.
Well, once again, Bob and I saw two different movies.
Yeah, we seem to be going on divergent paths here, Scott.
My absolute favorite part of this movie was the Dana Andrews story.
That was my least.
And yeah, that was my favorite, man. I really loved that. I love that. I love that whole arc that he went through. I was heavily invested in that, and that to me was what made this the fantastic movie that it was. The Fredric March, he won the best Oscar for. He won the Oscar for Best Actor. You know, I don't know what all the competition was that year, so I can't say. But I didn't see his performance as an Oscar winner. I kind of suspect that was that might have been a makeup for something previous that he missed out on or something, which the Academy tends to do sometimes. I thought Dana Andrews was a much more compelling performance in this movie. The Fredric March story, I thought it was pretty good. Fredric March and Myrna Loy, I thought it was pretty good, but it started out setting up his story as a guy who liked to drink a lot, who probably drank too much. He was a partier, and there was a couple of instances when he just got really, when he was really, really embarrassing to the people around him because he was drinking so hard and heavy. And I thought that that's the path that his arc was going to take. But then all of a sudden, at some point, they just dropped that. All of a sudden, in the back half of the movie, Fredric March was just there being a good protective father to his daughter and kind of supporting his daughter and everything, but the path they were going with him, it just kind of went away, and I would have liked to have seen that carry through. The injured veteran, that story was okay, but I just for some reason that just didn't resonate with me. It was more like, oh, okay, we're here, we're watching him for a while now, let's get back to the other stuff. That's kind of the reaction I was having to that story. But I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. It's just something that just didn't resonate with me. I thought it was a fantastic movie. It was not what I was expecting it to be. When Bill suggested this last week, and I went and looked at it, and I saw it was a 3-hour movie about these war veterans coming home, and I'm going, oh my God, okay, let's do this. And then I sat down and watched it, and I really liked it. It did not feel like a 3-hour movie. I thought it was great. I'm very, very happy that Bill gave me the opportunity to watch this. It's not a movie I would have ever sought out for myself, and I really enjoyed it. It was a fantastic movie. And I'm going to give it a 4-star rating out of 5. Bill, where would you put it?
I would put it at 4.5. I think one of the things I do want to go back to what Bob said, because his point is quite valid in the context of the story, but I think it's a script problem, because I have the sense, I mean, in actuality, Teresa Wright and Dana Andrews are probably about 8 years apart in their real lives. I mean, Myrna Loy is only about 12 years older than Teresa Wright. So it's one of these Hollywood things where the math doesn't sometimes equal the casting. And I felt, because again, according to what Bob pointed out, it's true. Fredric March says that they've been married for 20 years, so she's Teresa Wright's got to be 18 or 19, and yet, she doesn't give any of that sort of sensibility that she's a recent high school graduate. To me, she's someone who's doing a lot of volunteer work. She's kind of like the second in command of the household when her father's overseas, making sure that her younger brother, doesn't forget his lunch and gets to school on time. And she seems quite compatible, and which is why I get the sense that she can mix cocktails and make breakfasts and handle a rambunctious kind of handsy Dana Andrews when he's a lot inebriated. So that worked for me. But when Bob pointed it out, if you look at it that way, it is kind of an unseemly situation. But I don't think of it that way. I think of it as sort of a younger woman and a slightly older man, as opposed to a middle-aged or a mid-30s guy hitting on a high schooler. So that's
yeah, I didn't get that at all. She felt to me like it never occurred to me to think about how old she was, but I just got the feeling like she was probably like 20, 21, something like that. It's kind of where I was thinking, and I never got any sense that there was any anything untoward going on here. It's just the only thing untoward going on there was a man who was playing around behind his wife's back, but that's that's not anything bordering on criminal or anything like that.
Yeah. The other two important things are kind of musical notes that I would like to make. One is during their bar crawl when Fredric March and Myrna Loy and Teresa Wright go out on the first night home, they hit about 5 or 6 nightclubs before they come to Butch's, which is where all the guys meet up. But one of the nightclubs, you see a little 10, maybe less than that, 5-second vignette of Gene Krupa going crazy on the drums, which I love to see. Any kind of Gene Krupa action is good. Reminds me of Keith Moon, and vice versa. And then Butch's bar is actually run by Hoagie Carmichael, who is, one of the great American songwriters. And, if you like Stardust and if you like Georgia on My Mind, here's the guy who's doing it. And he, anytime he's in a movie, I just love to watch him because he gives the very heartfelt kind of, Heartland America. It really comes through. So it's great to see him in there, and because he's the guy who brings, as kind of the host of the bar, he kind of helps the Harold Russell character deal slightly with his issues about being reluctant to engage with his parents and his fiance because he's self-conscious of the hooks that he calls the things that he uses as a double amputee. So all of this is my rationale for giving it a 4.5, although I probably would give it a 5 if I were as inebriated as all of the other guys.
What exactly kept you from giving it a 5?
To be honest with you, because I've seen it a number of times now, I get the itch to kind of move around, so it's a little bit longer than I would like. It could be edited, but there's no reason to do it. The first time you see it, all of those times need to be, they have to flow. So when Harold Russell is lying in bed thinking about things, you have to see him thinking about it. And you could cut that out or you could cut it shorter, but I don't see any reason to do it.
We could go back to kind of what I was saying, that the Harold Russell story was the least interesting to me, and I had this thought too that maybe that could have been its own movie, right? Because the Dana Andrews story and the Fredric March story were pretty much intertwined. That was really like two heads of the same story. They interacted, and Dana Andrews was falling in love with Fredric March's daughter. So those two story arcs were kind of woven together, where the other one was just kind of off there by itself, and just every now and then the gentleman would just show up in the same scene with everybody else, and at the end they all came together for one scene. But I thought that could have been one way to make this movie shorter, was to excise that story and make a whole movie, because I think that could have been a movie unto itself.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think, I mean, part of it is to actually show someone who is physically affected by the war. The three of them are obviously emotionally and mentally affected by it.
Right.
Yeah, Dana Andrews wakes up in nightmares, and I think the Fredric March character is, he compensates by drinking, and I guess that's the different things that what's attempted to be shown is all of those different impacts.
Right.
To make it work, I guess you would want to have someone who's actually physically affected, physically disabled. So I wouldn't touch that. I mean, I have to say that there were two moments. They always stick with me, and I get this is where I get my Kleenex out. Fredric March, he rings his own doorbell, and his son opens the door, and his son's really excited, so he covers his mouth because he wants to surprise Millie, the Myrna Loy character. And then Teresa Wright comes up, and he says, "Let's just be quiet, And in the kitchen, Myrna Loy says, she asks Peggy, "Who's at the door? Who's at the door?" And then she just waits. And it's this, you can count it, it's like 5 seconds. And then she knows who it is. And it's very emotional. And the bookend to that is the very end of the movie, where finally, after a lot of trauma, Harold Russell and his fiancée do indeed get married. Dana Andrews is the best man. Fredric March and Myrna Loy, Teresa Wright are all there. And everybody's very happy. And they go to congratulate the bride and groom, and standing on opposite ends of the room. And this is where that Greg Toland cinematography works so well. Teresa Wright's standing there, and she's looked away a number of times during the ceremony. And so is Dana Andrews. They're looking at each other or not looking at each other at the same time. And then at the very end, he walks over to her, and they kiss and they embrace. And that they're going to get married. He's finally found a job. It's not a great job. He talks about how it's going to be tough for a while, and
Yeah. I mean, it was fantastic. I mean, it was a fantastic way to tell the story of these three people who were affected by the war in different ways, like you were saying, and it was just basically a story of how they kind of integrate back into society. Like the whole thing was, can't wait to get home, writing letters to home, and they're all waiting to get home. They just can't wait to get home to see their loved ones. And then all of a sudden, like when in a cab, like you're saying, all three of them all of a sudden started becoming reluctant. Oh, they were a little bit scared. They didn't. Let's go get a drink before we go home. And that whole kind of thing. It's obvious where they were going there. But I thought it was all told very well. The stories were told very well. It all ended up, it all became happy endings, and they all readjusted, and everybody went on and lived happily ever after. Which, okay, a little bit of a stretch, but that's the way they made movies back in the day, right? There were no unhappy endings back in the day, which is fine. I didn't have any problem with that. Bob, how do you rate this?
I give it a 3, based on my problems with my inability to get past the story arc of Dana Andrews' character.
Should we decide what we're going to watch next week?
Yeah.
Okay, let's pull the wheel up. we have left in this round? We have Bob, and we have Randy, which is a real good roulette wheel that we haven't done yet. So let's go ahead and spin the wheel. Will it be Randy or will it be Bob? It looks like it's going to be Bobby.
Okay, well, I already have my pick. And since we've been doing we've been on a roll here with classic movies, I'm going to go with another classic, and I would like for us to watch 12 Angry Men.
We had to do a second take on on Bob's choice for next week because we realized that 12 Angry Men is no longer on Prime Video, and that's kind of the parameters we set for this stretch of our reviews, is to pick something off Prime Video. So we're going to give it back to Bob and let him make a second choice.
Okay, for my alternative, I think I want to go with a Sidney Poitier classic, In the Heat of the Night.
That is included with a Prime subscription. So that's what we're going to do. Next week, we're going to watch In the Heat of the Night. Everybody hit that subscribe button. Like this video. Drop us a comment. Let us know what you thought of this movie we talked about today and last week and the one next week. Just let us know that you're out there and that you're enjoying what we're doing, and we would appreciate that. And we will see you next week. So long.